Hey everybody, Mike and Hannah here with Delta Faucet. Today we're going to be installing a Delta ShowerSense Digital Shower. With customizable presets, precise temperature and flow control, and built-in Bluetooth compatibility, the Delta ShowerSense Digital Shower has all of the features necessary to create a shower experience customized to fit your needs. Now the ShowerSense Digital Thermostatic Rough is offered in 2-port, 3-port, and 4-port options. Today we will be installing the 3-port, but this video will work with all of the types.
Okay, let's get some disclaimers out of the way. This installation should be performed by a licensed plumber or an experienced DIYer with advanced knowledge of both plumbing and electrical systems. It involves working with pressurized water lines, electrical wiring, and ensuring compliance with all applicable local building codes. If you're not fully confident in your ability to complete these steps safely, we do recommend working with a qualified professional to perform the installation.
Also, keep in mind that the digital shower valve can handle increased volumes and flow rates of water when compared to your standard shower fixtures. So be sure to consult the associated flow rate charts in the instruction guide to verify that not only are the supply lines you have sufficient to support the flow rate of your application, but also that the drain size and location will be able to handle the increased volume of water.
The instructions contain many critical points to consider. Be sure to read and understand those before you begin the installation. We will highlight a few key topics throughout this video. Okay, with all of that said, let's collect the tools and supplies that we'll need.
You'll need a screwdriver, driver bit, and some screws.
All right, once you've gathered those tools and supplies, let's get started. When you're considering where to locate your shower valve, there's a couple of things you want to keep in mind. The first is you want to make sure that you place this in an area that you have unrestricted access to. So you don't want to bury this behind tile or drywall. Just in case you need to service it later, you do need to have access to it. Next, you want to place it near your shower just so that you have optimum performance. Last, you want to make sure that you aren't placing this in an area that's unconditioned, like an attic or a crawl space, because you don't want to expose the unit to extreme temperatures. All right, so you can see that we have ours placed on a plywood board, so you can do that as well. It just needs to be installed on a solid surface, so you could even directly apply it to your framing. Lastly, this can be installed horizontally or vertically. So you can see that ours is installed in a vertical position. You can do either way, just whichever works best for your space.
With all that said, let's talk through some pre-plumbing considerations to keep in mind. Now, in the next step, you are going to see all of this hooked up, so you'll see how it's going to look. However, I think it's important to kind of talk through those now, just so you have an idea of how this is going to come together. Now, the first thing I want to point out is you'll see that my two supply lines for my hot and my cold are 3/4 inches in diameter. Now, we need some increased flow to supply the shower valve itself because it can handle a high flow rate. We want to make sure we're supplying it with plenty of water. Next, you can see I've also installed my shutoff valves on top of both of my hot and cold supplies. Next, my plumber will come in and they will go ahead and install a water hammer arrestor on top of these valves, followed by a union before connecting it to the unit itself. Now, the union is extremely important because it will allow us to service the unit in the future if we need to do so. Now, the union is going to be connected to these inlet adapters on the bottom of my unit in the orientation I have here. Now, I do want to take a second to talk about these inlet adapters. To access them, you go ahead and remove this little door here. And you'll see now I have access to both the hot and the cold side. I'm going to start with the hot. I'm going to go ahead and pull off that U-clip. And now my inlet adapter can gently be pulled straight down and off of the shower valve body itself. Now, keep in mind that there is a little bit of a check valve that sits on top of the inlet adapter. In very rare instances, when you pull this out, it may come out too. That's totally fine if it does. Just go ahead and pop it back up into place above the inlet adapter. Now, on the adapter itself, first thing you'll notice on the top, it has this little strainer here that will help catch any debris that may be caught in your system and maintain flow rate. Next, it has these two O-rings on the top of the adapter, which help maintain a watertight seal between our supply lines and the shower valve itself. Now, this is extremely important, especially if you're making a sweat connection to your union here, because you're going to be using some heat. We want to make sure that the heat from that connection isn't causing any damage to the housing of our shower valve or these O-rings. So I recommend going ahead and removing them, making that sweat connection, and once that's done, then reinstalling these O-rings. Once you have those O-rings reinstalled, we can take the strainer, place it in the top of the inlet adapter, and then push the whole unit gently into the spot we pulled out from earlier. Once that's fully seated, you're going to take your U-clip, find those two little holes, and gently push it into place. Now to ensure we have a good connection, I think it's a good idea to give it a little bit of a tug down just to ensure everything's nice and snug. Once you're done here and you've made all your connections, last thing is just to take the door and cover everything back up again. So that wraps up the inlet side. Let's talk about the outlet side for a second. You'll notice the outlets of the shower valve are these 3 on the side here. And the first thing you'll notice that each one of these is a 1/2 inch in diameter instead of the 3/4 inch diameter that we had for the inlets. Now each one of these is going to be feeding a different set of shower components back inside of my shower. And we can go ahead and make the connection directly to the inlet here. However, again, if you're making a sweat connection, I recommend going ahead and pulling those off to make sure we don't damage the shower valve itself. To pull those off, it's very similar as before with the inlets. Pull off the little door, find that U-clip, gently pull it out, and then the outlet adapter pulls right off. Now the first thing you'll notice that's different about the outlet adapter to the inlet adapter is that there's no strainer, and also there's no check valve to keep an eye on. But again, we do want to pay close attention to these O-rings, so if you're making that sweat connection, we want to ensure these aren't being damaged when you're making that final connection. Once your connection's all done, just ensure the O-rings are back in their respective spots here. Push it back into place, just like before. Taking your U-clip, finding those little holes, push it into place, a little tug to ensure it's connected correctly, and then covering everything back up with that little door. And that about wraps up all of the pre-plumbing considerations to keep in mind.
Last couple of things to talk about. We do have a data cable run through a conduit here. The other side goes to our shower interface. We also have a GFCI outlet. You want to pay attention to your local building codes to see if your outlet also needs to be GFCI protected. Okay, we're going to go ahead and get our plumber in here. They're going to make the connections, and then we'll be ready to move on to our next step. All right, our plumber has made our connections, so let's review those. On our inlet side, we have our 2 water supply shutoffs, our 2 water hammer arresters, and our 2 unions. And over here on our outlet side, we have our 3 ports, which we have hooked into our shower components. Now, if you have an unused port, you do need to make sure to cap that before we move on to the next step. Another thing I want to note, if you have a tub shower combo, you do need to make sure that your tub is in a separate port than your shower. You can't use a tub shower diverter. Okay, now we're ready to move on to pressure testing the system.
Now the first step in pressure testing our system is going to be verifying that each one of these outlet ports is capped within our shower enclosure. Once that looks good, we can go ahead and turn on both our hot and our cold supply stops down here at our valves. There's the hot side and the cold side. Now what this has done is basically allow water and pressure to run up to the shower valve itself, but not beyond. So the connections I'm checking right now is all of these plumbing connections down here, my water hammer arresters and my unions, making sure everything looks good. I don't see any evidence leaks, so we can go ahead and move on to testing the shower valve and the outlet ports as well. Now the first thing we're going to do with this is be using our AC adapter that came with our shower valve. And it has 2 sides. You see it's got this one side that plugs into the wall, and then the other side plugs into the shower valve itself. Now the side that plugs into the shower valve, you'll notice has a little key on the bottom to make sure we're in the correct orientation. Now I'm just going to make sure I'm lining up that little notch on the bottom with the corresponding key on the side of the valve, and then tightening it into place until it's nice and snug, like so. Once that's connected, I can plug in the other side of the AC adapter into the wall outlet. All right, now I have power running to my shower valve, so I want to give it just a minute to fully boot up. What I'm looking for is a solid blue LED light, which lets me know that the shower valve is ready for calibration. Now at this point, like I mentioned before, we're just running water pressure up to the unit itself and not to any of these 3 outlet ports, which we want to do to check for the pressure running into our shower enclosure to verify there's no leaks. To do this, we're going to be opening all 3 ports at the same time using a test mode. To run the test mode, there's a little test button here, this little silver button down below where we made that AC connection. We're going to hold this button down between 5 and 9 seconds, let off of it, and we should see this little LED indicator start flashing yellow. So let's go ahead and hold that button down. Release it, and now you can see I have a yellow flashing light, which indicates that all 3 of these ports are wide open. Now at this point, this is a great chance for me to go and check all of my connections running into my shower enclosure to verify it's passing the pressure test. Once we've checked all of our outlet lines here, making sure we don't see any evidence of leaks, and we've passed our pressure test, we can go ahead and cancel the pressure test mode by pressing this silver button again once, and it'll return it back to that solid blue LED. Now at this point, that wraps up the pressure test.
Now, as the final step to our rough-in installation, we're gonna unplug our AC power adapter from the wall. And you may notice that this LED light stays lit for just a little bit as the system discharges. Okay, now we can go ahead and finish our construction, install our finished shower trims, and then we'll be ready to move on to setting up our digital interface and calibrating our system.
Now that we have our construction all finished and our trims are installed, we can move on to connecting our digital interface to our shower valve. To do this, we're going to be connecting the data cable from the digital interface here to the shower valve itself. We're going to be using this included dongle. Now the dongle has two sides. One side's for the data cable, and the other side is for the connection to the shower valve. You notice this connection is keyed. It's got that flat spot on the bottom there, and also has this handy white line. We can keep an eye on it as a reference, making sure that's facing directly out from our wall when we push it into place on either one of these two ports. Once I have that fully seated in place, I can take the other end of the dongle and my data cable and click it into place.
Next, we're gonna plug in our AC power adapter to the wall. And then we're gonna let our system boot up and wait until we see a solid blue LED light. Now, if your house were to ever lose power, you can plug this into an uninterruptible power supply and your system will function as normal. All right, let's go ahead and move into the shower enclosure for the next steps. All right, we've finished the construction in our bathroom, and now it's time to install our digital interface. So I've gone ahead and plugged in the AC power adapter to our digital shower valve, and now we're gonna locate where our digital interface should go. So you wanna make sure that you locate it within your shower enclosure, but not directly in the stream of water. You also wanna locate it 4.5 feet off of your finished floor. So you can see that I've located mine here, and I've gone ahead and made a 2 3/4 inch hole. So I also have my data cable hanging out that we routed in an earlier step. And as a pro tip, I have a piece of painter's tape here just to make sure that my cable doesn't fall back into the wall. So before we mount this, I wanna plug it into our data cable just to make sure that it powers on and everything is working as it should. So we'll go ahead and plug this in until you hear it click. And now we're gonna wait just a couple of minutes for it to boot up. Now that it's booted up, we're gonna check to make sure that the shower valve is connected. So to do that, we're gonna tap on the screen, tap it once more. Now you can see the profiles pop up. I'm gonna tap on profile number 1. And there you go. So you can see that it's recognizing that our shower valve is connected. So once you check that, we can go ahead and move on to mounting our digital interface. You can mount your screen vertically or horizontally. So if you turn it over to the back, there is an orientation guide that will let you know which way is the top and the bottom for both the vertical and horizontal orientation. So I'm gonna mount mine horizontally.
The first thing to do is peel off this protective backing.
Just by grabbing a corner, peeling it off. All right, now I'm gonna make sure that it's not upside down. All right, so there's the top. So I'm gonna peel off my painter's tape. Then I'm gonna guide my data cable back into the wall. All right, now I'm not gonna press this against the wall just yet. So I'm just going to barely put it into the hole here, and I'm gonna grab a small level. I'm gonna place it on the top of our screen. Make sure it's level. Once you have it where you want it, then you can go ahead and press it against the wall. Okay, that looks great. All right, now we're gonna go ahead and peel off the protective plastic by just grabbing a corner, peeling that off, and then you can discard this. Next, we're gonna grab the included silicone. We're gonna run a bead of silicone all along the outer edge to give it a watertight seal. Then we're gonna let it cure, and we'll be ready to move on to the next step. We've let our silicone cure, and now it's time to configure and calibrate our shower. So to do that, we're gonna tap our screen, hit profile 1, shower preset 1. It's gonna ask if we wanna enter shower setup. We'll hit yes. All right, now we're gonna assign our shower fixtures to our outlets. So outlet number 1, we're gonna assign our shower head and hit select. Outlet number 2, we'll assign our hand shower and hit select. And then outlet number 3, we'll do our body spray. Okay, now I'm gonna hit save and calibrate. It'll give me 10 seconds to exit the shower before the water turns on. All right, so we'll go ahead and hit save and calibrate, and then hit start. During the calibration, each outlet will cycle water on and off. When all outlets are finished cycling water, the calibration is complete, and that wraps up the digital interface configuration.
Now, if you're adding the optional steam generator to your digital shower setup, there's one more data connection we need to make, and that's connecting the shower valve to the steam generator itself. Now, we're gonna do this very similarly to how we did with the user interface connection to the shower valve. Again, using an included dongle. You'll see how it's keyed with a flat spot on one side and also a white line for reference. We're just gonna gently push it in onto the side of the shower valve and then take our control cable here and plug it into the back until it snaps. Then, with the other end of the cable, I'm gonna come down to my steam generator and make the same connection inside the generator on the circuit board here. You'll also notice that I have the optional audio module on this setup, so that connection's being made inside the steam generator as well. All right, now that we have that connection made, I wanna take just a second to verify that we have everything connected in the correct order, because that does matter. So again, our user interface inside the shower is connected to our shower valve here. Then the shower valve is connected through a control cable to our steam generator. And then any other optional components like the audio module is being connected into the steam generator on the circuit board here. Okay, now at this point, all of my data connections are made, so I can go ahead and re-energize my system, and then we'll come back here and check to see how everything came together. Okay, I've put the cover back on my steam generator and restored power to it. I've plugged in my shower valve and also my optional audio module here and given a second for everything to boot up, double check my connections, and everything's looking great. So that about wraps up the steps for connecting the steam generator to your digital shower.
All right, that wraps up our install. We do have a separate video to walk you through how to use your digital shower, so be sure to check that out.
Also, I recommend downloading and installing the DFC at Home app onto any mobile device because it'll really help you unlock all of the features associated with your new digital shower.
As always, if you have any questions, you can reach out to the Delta Faucet customer service team. They're more than happy to help.